I want to welcome everyone to a new episode of On Cloud 9, which is a series where Sierra-Cedar clients answered 9 different questions related to the implementation of their Oracle Cloud applications. My name is Garth Carter. I'm a vice president, member of the higher education leadership team here at Sierra-Cedar. And our On Cloud 9 series is really intended to share client stories, their lessons learned, the objectives they had in moving to cloud applications, and some of the key outcomes that they've achieved to date. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Brian Dixon, who is the Vice Provost of Enrollment Management at the University of Texas, located in beautiful Austin, Texas. Brian, thank you for being my guest.
Thank you. So glad to be here. Excited to have this conversation and talk about this partnership and the successful implementation that we just realized here at University of Texas.
Appreciate that. And I will note, I appreciate you taking the time today because I believe classes just started on Monday in Austin.
They did.
And I believe you just dispersed a lot of aid over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, we have dispersed nearly $200 million in financial aid over the last 5 or 6 days. It has been incredible. It has been a complete whirlwind. And so looking forward to having that conversation with you about how that process happened and how this compares to some of our previous experiences dispersing aid during this time of year.
Awesome. Brian, let me start with a just general background. Give us a little bit about the University of Texas at Austin, your student enrollment, some of the traditions, the history of the school itself, any notable alumni, anything you want to comment on.
Great. I will stay out of the notable alumni because we get in trouble. The University of Texas has so many of them. I will say the University of Texas at Austin is the newest member of the SEC, and that will probably get a lot of fanfare. But no, the University of Texas, large, prestigious, elite public research university, one of the top 10 public research universities in the country, has been on an upward trend. In enrollment, we enroll over 53,000 students at the university. We have just this past fall had the largest freshman class in history, and we have seen significant improvements in retention rates and graduation rates, and then really significant growth over the last 10 years in first-generation Pell eligible students. So we knew there would be a lot of sensitivity around the topic of financial aid and just significant initiatives that the university has wanted to put in place. And one of the challenges, of course, is can we do those quickly? Can we do those in an efficient fashion? Generally, the president doesn't like to hear the software is not going to let us do things quick enough or fast enough, especially since we have a homegrown system historically and had to keystroke every single change in. And that has been incredibly painful and very time consuming.
Right, and that I heard you mention, the initiative to really look to have more Pell eligible students, and I'm aware of the Texas Advance commitment at UT Austin, and applaud that effort to really to make a high quality UT education even more affordable for all of your students, which I think is just very, very notable. And so let me follow up. Next question would be, UT Austin had an older homegrown system for financial aid before you made the decision to move to a packaged software solution. And tell me a little bit about the trade-offs and maybe what prompted you to say, what do we need to do with our older system versus considering something new?
Yeah, so for us, the challenge, of course, is when you have an older system and you have an institution of our size and our complexity, we'd obviously like to replace the entire student information system. That comes with considerable amount of cost, considerable amount of time. But we found ourselves in a place where, the federal government had announced this FAFSA simplification, and we did the calculations on how much it would cost the university to retrofit the homegrown solution, and just decided that because of that significant cost that was going to be over $5 million, we needed to at least do some due diligence and say, are there some products that we could purchase that might offer us better bang for the buck? Oftentimes when we're looking at having a challenge like that, we sometimes focus so much on the immediate, we forget about the innovation opportunity. And so we had an immediate problem, but we were also saying, is this also an opportunity for us to improve the student experience overall? So we thought about things like the cost of compliance. How much would it cost to do the legacy system? How do we avoid sort of the recoding? How nice would it be to be amongst a community of other institutions all using the similar kinds of solution and being able to learn from one another? We were thinking about system scalability and integration, and then system resiliency as a whole. So how do we make it easier when we have these crises come up in the future, to be able to quickly recover, quickly adapt, and we felt like we found that in this particular solution. The other thing I will add is, was really important to us to find a product that would have been successful at another large public institution. And for us at the time, that was Michigan State. And we had some really significant conversations, because they were, 18 to 24 months ahead of us in the process. And that was a really important factor for us. We needed a standalone system, and we needed a system that had been proven successful at another large near peer. And that was an important part of our consideration as well.
Right, and I'm going to follow up on something you touched on, which is you looked at replacing the entire student system versus just financial aid. And as I'm talking to organizations right now, I think it's pretty well known that the state of modern cloud-based student systems is still in a state of immaturity for organizations of your size. And just the other day, I had someone say, why would I just replace one single point solution with financial aid versus wait for everything? Can you tell me a little bit about what you went through in terms of that evaluation?
Well, part of what I thought about, and this about me, but I also spent 10 years as a consultant implementing financial aid as a part of the student information system. So I am very well aware that the financial aid system is the one that is most often having bolt-ons and customizations and different things, because almost every school in the country does financial aid just a little bit differently. And I'm sure you know that as an implementation partner. And because of that, the maintenance and the administrative overhead related to your financial aid system is so significant. The other thing is, the financial aid piece, out of all the other modules in the student information system, is the most regulated. It is the system that is most likely to get you in trouble in an audit, most likely to get you a fiscal fine. And because of all of those reasons, we took all of those things into consideration. You don't generally have to change your admissions process every single year. That's very atypical. You don't generally have to go in and update your course catalog, other than putting in new courses every single year. That registration process, that admissions process, that billing process generally stays fairly consistent.
Yeah, I totally agree. Brian, early in this process, you described to me the UT Austin One Stop, which is located in the UT Tower, which, having been on your campus, it is absolutely beautiful. You can see the UT Tower from anywhere on that campus, from as far away as the football stadium. But tell me how that One Stop ties into the deployment of a new financial aid system.
Yeah, so the One Stop initiative was really about, how do we elevate the student experience as a whole. We realized that students were becoming incredibly frustrated, going from place to place, spot to spot, trying to get different answers to various questions. The One Stop initiative was also about trying to get some standardization and the use of technical tools and experiences, trying to shorten the time frames of students, and trying to align all of the various processes, from when tuition is due to when financial aid pays, to everything about the admissions process, trying to get all of those things to march together in cadence. And we launched it just before the start of COVID. And so the One Stop became a critical lifeline for our students in dispersing the emergency CARES Act types of monies and funds, and being that sort of virtual presence as we had hybrid and remote coursework throughout the course of the process. And it also becomes a very vital element for faculty and staff who don't know where else to call. They call our central One Stop, and they're getting connected to the resources that they need. And so as we thought about replacing the financial aid system, about 65 to 70% of those student contacts are financial aid related in the one stop. And so it is of critical importance when we think about our staffing levels. It is of critical importance when we think about, being a top 10 public university, to make sure we're delivering on the kinds of experiences to be, as our president says, the most impactful public university in the world. And so that is a really big part of our goal, is to be able to get those critical services and financial aid registration and resources into the hands of our students, and ultimately have better student outcome and have better student satisfaction.
Right. Brian, you touched on this earlier in your conversations with Michigan State University, which we had the pleasure to work with. I think they're now in their fourth aid year working with student financial planning. Tell me a little bit about the motivation when you looked at that. Again, having a homegrown legacy system and now being part of a cohort group. How have you found the participation as part of a cohort group using the same common software?
Yeah, I think that some of the things that have been behind our motivation was, how great would it be that every time there's a regulatory change, we were homegrown, an answer would be there and it would be available and it would be provided by a software provider. How great would it be if, and I think people forget this when you're thinking about homegrown systems, we didn't have to rely on training every single person how to support the system, because there are people now in the higher education environment who are using student financial planning and having that product available to them, and for them utilizing that has been incredibly helpful. We also have those, and maybe this is not the right way to say this, but we have those, like, are we crazy moments, right? Where we want to be able to reach out to a peer. We have a problem. We're thinking about solving it a particular way, but just being able to pick up the phone, jump on a virtual call, and sort of talk through a particular way that we're going to approach a problem. And as I acknowledged earlier, everybody doesn't do things the exact same way, but there's general principles that we all tend to follow, and there is some synergy that happens and occurs. And then it's also been incredibly fun to be able to, to communicate with Oracle and say, hey, these are our priorities. These are our ideas. These are the things that we want to see, investments be made to develop these things out into the future. It's almost like becoming part of a car group or club, like everybody who, bought a Lexus or bought a Toyota, that kind of experience. It feels like you're, sort of a part of a bigger family. And that has been really wonderful for us as well. And obviously this was really important to us to, again, be responsive to our senior leadership and the timing of rolling out innovations. You mentioned our Texas Advanced Commitment. We also have, during the same time frame, have rolled out book credits for all of our students less than $125,000. We have a $100 million program with the Dell Scholars and UT for Me that we work on. We also rolled out a housing affordability scholarship program during this time. So there have been really significant strategic activities that we've been doing to try to support our population and to improve those overall outcomes for our students.
Awesome. Brian, I'm curious about some of the key objectives that you had, as well as UT Austin, as you deployed new software. You mentioned you've just been through disbursement of financial aid for a large population of students, and I'd be curious as to where that fit within your objectives, but also how it compared to previous years.
Yeah, so when we start thinking about our objectives, obviously it's incredibly difficult. Anybody who's watching this video right now knows how incredibly difficult it is to get someone to budget this kind of major purchase. And so our motivations were a multi-layered set of activities. Like, so for example, federal compliance, right? Like, we weren't grossly out of compliance, but there were lots of different issues that we had here and there. We'd worked with internal audit to map those things out. And when we calculated the costs to do those things, they were going to be so financially significant. That was part of the thing that drove us into the market to look for a different option. Obviously, you mentioned, operational efficiency, right? Staff is incredibly expensive. How do we figure out through automation and process? And obviously this year, none of us knew this, that we were going to have such a shorter period of time to be able to review ICERs and FAFSAs, and get students turned around. But that was a major consideration for us as well. I mentioned that student experience. Boosting our data accuracy and our overall security was important. And the ultimate end of the day in any financial aid office is getting money in the hands of students in a timely fashion, in an accurate way as possible. And so we are so pleased that we were able to disperse 63% more, or $75 million more year to date than we did a year ago in the new system, despite all of the delays of the federal government, despite all of the different challenges that were going on. And so we just think that is an incredible testament of what is possible with this product. And I can't say everybody will have that exact same experience, but an institution of our size and of our scale, we certainly have had really, really smart, capable individuals up until now. We weren't working with just like hammers and knives or whatever. We were using fairly sophisticated process with really smart folks, but we still saw this incredible upswing in disbursements, and senior leadership couldn't be anything more than pleased.
Great to hear, and very a tribute to you and your team. Really,
thank you.
What you've accomplished. Brian, you mentioned this year of FAFSA simplification, the compressed timeline for aid processing that occurred. Did the automation of SFP help you address that really compressed overall timeline that every college and university experienced?
Yeah, I think the thing that was so daunting initially was we were getting these messages from the department that was saying, some of this data might be corrupt. You're going to have to reprocess these. We're going to send you these new pieces of information, and the volume and the amount of information that had to get churned through was absolutely overwhelming. And one of the specific things that comes to mind, and you could imagine this at a large institution like the University of Texas, is our scholarship processing, and specifically the ones that we get from departments and colleges. Generally during this time of year, we will have maybe 8,000 to 10,000 holds of files that have to get manually reviewed because a scholarship was awarded after they'd gone through federal packaging. And those have to be reviewed to see whether or not the student is going to be over award, whether or not something has to be adjusted. Well, that process just pretty much went away. And so that is part of the way that we were able to significantly increase the number of students who got money on time, because a staff person didn't have to look at each and every one of those things. The system went through and automated it and was able to get that figured out. Now again, I don't want to sort of paint the sort of panacea picture. We still have pockets of students here, pockets of students there that we are working through, but they are in the 150 here or 45 there, or that kind of thing. This has been really incredible for us. And again, we're just now at the floor, right? We expect that each and every year as we work through this product, we just become better, and we become more automated, and we become more streamlined. So I think that where the ceiling is yet to be explored, but where the floor is a really exciting place to be starting.
Yeah. Right now I'm going to shift gears on you, and kind of a fun question. If you had to choose a song that best described your journey, making the transition to Oracle Student Financial Planning, what would it be?
Well, I'm a big Rocky fan. So like if I were to pick a song or something like that, I would think of Eye of the Tiger, Survivor. It's a classic. It just talks about, being perseverant and resilient and sort of staying focused. A lot of times when I think about why in my past experiences people were not successful in deploying a product, it's because they weren't laser focused on the opportunity that was in front of them. They didn't have full and complete buy-in from everybody involved. They sort of had one foot in the old system, one foot in the new system. And we describe this experience of jumping out of a plane without a parachute, that we had to stick the landing. And as nerve-wracking as that was, we stayed laser focused on what we were trying to accomplish.
I will second that. There was an all-in mentality across the board with your team.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. We had a lot of those. We had a lot of those fun conversations together. What are we going to do in this particular situation? How are we going to get this figured out? But abandoning ship was never a part of that conversation.
Never an option.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time, give yourself and the project team advice during the project kickoff meeting, what would that advice be?
My advice for that would be is don't underestimate contingency planning, but don't overweight that, because I think a lot of times, we want to be prepared on what can go wrong. And I think that's incredibly important, but it's difficult to do all of that in advance, because in reality, most contingency planning has to happen on the fly. Things come up, and you can't really predict what those things are going to be. There's no way we would have known that the FAFSA wasn't going to open up until December. There's no way we were going to know that the data wasn't going to be clean. There's no way we could have known that they weren't going to let students make FAFSA corrections. They weren't going to send those information. So those have to be real-time pivots. But along those same lines, I would say it's incredibly important, Brian, make sure that you tell senior leadership that things are not going to go according to plan, and they're going to need to make quick decisions, and they're going to need to have your back on this process. And I think that's incredibly an important piece of advice, really important.
And I'll give you kudos, sir. I thought you did an outstanding job of setting expectations and communicating often upwardly in your organization.
Thank you. Thank you.
So final question. Any tangible benefits that you expect to receive or have already begun to receive from your transition and move to Oracle Student Financial Planning?
Yeah, I mean, on top of the things that we've already sort of mentioned, sort of enhanced compliance and efficiency and better student experiences, I think the most important thing from a tangible benefit perspective is there's been a shift in the way that the financial aid office is interacting with the technical team. There's a shift towards understanding that this is our product, this is our solution, and sort of not waiting on the technical folks to say, do it this way, do it that way. And that was a really intentional goal that we have, because we think it's going to be incredibly important whenever we do replace the student information system, that modern systems rely on the fact that there will be really, really strong functional users who understand their business plan and their processes really, really well. And they're going to have configurable elements to make the system meet their business needs. And I think it's incredibly important that culture get created. Whereas you can think back, 15 or 20 years ago, especially in mainframe type systems, the technical people led all of those decisions, led all those processes, initiated those things from year to year. And so I think that is probably one of the biggest tangible benefits, on top of the fact that the last major implementation of a student system would be the financial aid changes of the mid 90s, right? So just sort of being an evident example that, this kind of scale change towards students is possible. And during the same period of time, you'll recall that we did also roll out a new scholarship system as well. And so it has been absolutely transformative to have those two systems rolled out during the similar period of time, and to see all the benefits for the students has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Brian, thank you so much. I appreciate your partnership and appreciate you taking time here today to share your experiences, your lessons learned. Just a great story for the University of Texas.
Thanks, Garth. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate Sierra-Cedar being our partner through this, being that steadying hand as we were thinking through some of these important decisions. And it's clear that we would not be where we are today without your help. So thank you so much for that.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Yep. Take care.